Next up is the third of our 4 awards. This is for Global Benefactor. The spirit of this award is thanks for thinking big, but I think we ought to change it after night. The spirit of this award should be thanks for dreaming big. And to introduce tonight's award winner is Karen Metz of Micron Technologies. Karen, come on up.
Thank you, Jonathan. I am honored to be here tonight to present the 2018 Global Benefactor Award. This distinction is for irrepressible vision and positive impact on society. The spirit of the award, as Jonathan just mentioned, is thanks for thinking big. One of the things that drew me to Micron was the sincere, actionable commitment to technology, industry collaboration, and education, all essential to making our communities stronger. Putting the strength of our company behind efforts to make the world a better place is not just a source of pride for us, it's something that I believe everyone at Micron internalizes. In fact, it's embodied in our vision statement of transforming how the world uses information to enrich life. This year's recipient of the Global Benefactor Award clearly shares this same vision. On behalf of everyone at Micron, let me say how proud we are to be presenting this award. This year's awardee founded a nonprofit organization that uses the principles and practices of the digital age to improve how the government serves the public and how the public improves the government itself. She and her inspiring organization have worked tirelessly with thousands of tech and design industry professionals to help hundreds of state and local governments serve their communities better. Now, they are working with the government to use our tax dollars to help millions, starting with those who need it the most. Other countries beyond the US are adopting these practices as well. Please join me in congratulating the 2018 Global Benefactor honoree, Jennifer Pahlka of Code for America. Jen, thanks for thinking big. Joining Jen on stage is Jacqueline Fuller, president of Google.org.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Snuggle. Thank you. Great. Why don't you come in? Great. Middle here. I got my hat. All right. Well, Jen and I have been friends for a long time and partners in crime, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. But before we start, we thought it might be helpful to get a quick video to learn a little bit more about your work. So shall we roll video? Wonderful.
I worked in technology media back in the earlier part of the century. It was an amazing time, and it was an amazing wave of innovation and creativity. But it became clear to me that it didn't seem like anyone else was paying attention to how much we were leaving our government back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. While the rest of our society was just hurtling towards this new frontier, I wanted to do something about that. We talked a lot in the beginning of Code for America about bringing some of the principles and practices of the web era to making government work. Starting with the user, understanding what's going on for the person who's going to use your service, iterating quickly, following the data about what's working and what's not. In Michigan, it used to be that you had several long, complicated applications for food stamps, Medicaid, and other social safety net programs, each of which took a long time. So we're in the process of simplifying that into one easy, short application so that they can actually get those benefits.
If I didn't have this program, I don't know what I would do, you know. I'd be worried and stressed and wonder what I'm going to do for food and how am I going to take care of myself and my son. It's quick, it's easy, it's not hard to understand. I'm so happy it's available to people to have.
As hard as it is, we are actually winning. we're starting to see interfaces to government that truly are simple and beautiful and easy to use. We have about 70 Code for America chapters all around the country. We call them brigades, and they're led by tech people, but also non-tech people. And they're decided that the best way to make their community better is to improve local government, make it work better for people. And we help connect them and support them all around the country. And what we need to do is just push it into the stratosphere, because we have all the evidence we need that government can work for the people and by the people in a digital age.
All right, John Pahlka.
Isn't it lucky we get to do a video?
Yeah.
So now we can just talk about whatever we want because you all know what the organization does.
Nice.
But I just do want to say it's just a real honor to be here, and this is an incredible honor for me and for the organization and all of our team. I have one team member here, Layla, and we're so excited to be honored in this way. Thank you, and thanks for doing this, Jacqueline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so we're going to dive into the heart of the matter, the work that you do, but I thought it might be fun for us to get to know you a little bit first. So I'm just going to ask you a series of quick questions, and if you could give me sort of a tweet-length response.
Okay.
We'll go through this quick. All right.
Didn't Twitter expand? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do a shorter. No.
Okay.
So where did you grow up?
Mostly in New York. I grew up in a neighborhood called Washington Heights, which is now famous because of Lin-Manuel Miranda. I grew up on the same block as Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Nice. Okay. What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
A librarian. It's just that's what you are. Like that's the nerd if you're not a computer nerd. That's
Yeah.
what it is,
Yeah. All right. What did you study in college?
I was an American Studies major.
That's very
which
appropriate.
it is. That's, the joke is, that what do you do with an American Studies degree? You found an organization called Code for America.
And so what was your first job out of college?
My first job out here in San Francisco was a secretary at a child welfare agency. And it was a bit of a random job, but I didn't stay in it long because it's a very, very hard job to do. It was very emotionally difficult to see what happens to kids in the system, and it's something that very much stayed with me as I went into government technology because I could see how those systems affected those kids.
So we're going to talk about Code for America in just a second, but what did you do before? What were you doing work-wise before Code for America?
Well, the funny thing is we're here at this venue. Actually, right before Code for America, I was running the Web 2.0 conferences and then the Gov 2.0 conferences. Before that, I ran the Game Developers Conference, so I know a whole lot about NVIDIA and spent many years doing the Game Developers Conference here in this exact building. It was
wow. So we've all come full circle.
Completely full circle. But after that, I moved on to another business-to-business media company. It was actually the same company with a different name, but and we partnered with a company called O'Reilly Media to do the Web 2.0 conferences, and this was sort of at the beginning of the participatory web, 2003. Such an exciting time, and from there, kind of decided to do this brand called Gov 2.0, which is how I got exposed to how government technology works, and sometimes doesn't.
So, where did the impetus come from for you to say, I really want to work at this connection between technology and government?
It was just the enormous contrast, really, between the Web 2.0 world and what I saw in government. I knew a little bit about government, obviously, from working in the Child Welfare Agency, but I had, then kind of gone on and done the Silicon Valley thing, and had been, really there for the growth of the video game industry, which is an incredibly powerful, dreamers making up whole new worlds, this incredible ambition.
Yeah.
And then same thing for the beginning of Google was young, Facebook, Twitter, we're all on the Web 2.0 stage, and you really have this sense of agency and speed and changing the world. And then when we decided to look at the how government technology is built and bought, you really cannot imagine two more different ways of thinking about technology. And it really, for me, connected back to wait a minute, we're doing this very slowly, we're doing it very expensively, and we're not doing it in ways that work for users. Okay, what's the impact of that? Money, time, but there's impact on people, kids, families that need food assistance. This is an issue of social justice, even though we think of it as an issue of technology.
What do you say to technologists? Because I find quite often in speaking to people in the tech industry, almost a disparagement of government and government workers and government service, and just thought, oh, it's so dysfunctional, it just doesn't work. We do things so much better in this distancing. What do you say to people to get them to have, as Jeff would say, that compassion?
Yeah. I mean, I feel somewhat, as Jeff said, authentic in my own journey towards that, because I feel like when I started Code for America, I had a bit of a notion that tech would save government. And what I've really found now, 8 years in working with public servants, is that they are doing unbelievably creative, courageous work under really difficult circumstances. And it really just goes back to, try to walk a mile in their shoes, and
Right.
you will have
Right.
a whole lot of empathy for what's going on. And I think that the mixing of those cultures, which has been going on for some time now, where, there is a lot for government to learn from the technology industry, and that is sort of the original thesis. But there is absolutely as much that we have to learn from government, the values of public service, just the desire and the need to serve everybody, not just pick a particular market, and just the history of our country really is all wrapped up in this idea of this public service that we have a little bit separated ourselves from here in Silicon Valley, and I would like to bring us back together.
So I bet if you asked everyone in this audience, all of us probably have a cause that we care deeply about. There's probably something that we're very upset that it's just not working. But what made you decide, yeah, I see that, and I'm going to step in and help solve it? What made you think, I need to do this?
Well, I'll tell you, I had this idea for Code for America one day over a conversation with a friend who worked in local government. And it was very simple, and it's a little bit different from what you saw here. I mean, the organization's changed a lot. But it was the idea of giving people a chance to do a year of service working in government from the technology industry. And it was inspired by my friend who worked for the chief of staff for the mayor of Tucson. And as soon as that idea came up, I kind of thought, oh, that's such a great idea. We could get people to come into government, not for the money, but for the chance to really do good. And I spent that whole day trying to think of who should do it. Going through my Rolodex, who could we get to do this? Because that's what I did in the media business. We just knew everybody. And I sort of finally came to the conclusion that the person who should do it is me. And the phrase that came to mind and was later reminded of by another friend that worked in government. She worked in the Veterans Administration, which is a tough place to work,
right,
and a tough place to make change, but she really did, and she was a very powerful woman. It's a quote from Lily Tomlin. I used to think somebody should do something about that, and then I realized that I was somebody. And I didn't really think of myself as somebody at that time. I just thought, no one else is going to do this crazy idea. And I really have an obligation to try.
Yeah. Well, clearly, other people think you're somebody as well, because not only are you receiving this Churchill Club Award this week, but Wired Magazine just named you one of the 25 most influential people over the past 25 years.
Thank you.
So we have royalty here tonight, folks, royalty. So you not only founded and, through blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of late nights, put together this dream and this vision and this team of Code for America, but you also then took a season, went into government, and helped create U.S. Digital Service. So tell us about the U.S. Digital Service. What's the dream there? What's the vision?
So the United States Digital Service is actually part of the White House. It's now a pretty big group. And I'll tell you a bit how I sort of came to do that. I'd been doing Code for America for a couple years. I think we had must have successfully shown that this was going to work. because we had cities and states and counties sort of, excited about a different way of doing things, and it caught the attention of Todd Park, who was the CTO of the country, actually the second ever CTO. I hope you know that, we only started having CTOs of our country when President Obama came into office. So he noticed this and asked if I would come to DC to run a program that was much like Code for America, but in the White House. And he happened to call me on a day when I was visiting the Government Digital Service in London. The UK has this amazing team where they're really bringing the best and the brightest technology talent and design talent into government and just completely redoing how the UK does digital services. And I said to him, he said, I want you to come to DC. I said, I really can't do that. What an enormous honor. I can't go. But please let me tell you about what they're doing here, and we need to do this in the United States. And there's a long story in there where I continued to say no, that I could not go, but ended up saying, when he said, no, I think we have found the way that we can actually build great digital capacity, great talent, right in the center of government and really transform it from where it matters the most. You have the backing of the president, then I kind of couldn't say no. And it's really an amazing, another amazing group of people who have amazing skills and are just dying to apply them to these things that matter so much to people in our country. And I tell you, people are sometimes skeptical, am I gonna move to DC or Code for America, am I gonna go work in local government, what's it gonna be like? And once they have that experience and they can see how many people they can help and how much they can help them, they're addicted. Everybody wants to keep doing it, and everything else seems sort of trivial by comparison.
Yeah. And it still exists. I mean, it made it through into a change of administration, which usually doesn't happen with these kinds of things.
When I was just getting it set up, everybody said to me, it's not going to last. Like, how are you going to make this work? And one of the things I said was like, well, it should survive if it's good. Like, we actually want to test things, right? We want things that aren't working to go away. That Silicon Valley sort of has that philosophy, and we don't do that enough in government. And I said, I'm not going to try to protect it. I'm going to just try to make it great. And a lot of people who came after did make it really great. And so, in fact, there is a thriving U.S. digital service now in the White House, and if anyone is interested,
they're hiring.
Continue to hire. An amazing, amazing group of people.
You've taken some of our Googlers, which we're thrilled about.
Matt Cutts is
Matt
an
Cutts,
amazing
one of
leader.
our geniuses.
How many years was he at Google?
Oh, forever.
Forever. And
Yeah,
now he,
the heart and soul of Google.
Now he is the fearless and just amazing leader of an incredible group of geeks that are making government better today, even today. Did I say that?
Well, so we've talked, a lot about your successes, and
Yeah.
they've been many. But
Yeah.
I think, as this group knows, we also learn a lot from our failures. So, if you're willing,
Yeah.
I thought maybe you could share with us one of your failures, and either during Code for America or U.S. Digital Service, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. Well, first I should say, I made the story about founding USDS sort of really sound quite happy, but I think I absolutely would have failed in that had healthcare.gov not failed. So I went to DC, I thought, oh my God, the president thinks this is a great idea. Of course it happens, right? And I spent several months there just turning PowerPoint slides, not doing what I wanted to do because there's so much caution. It was not a priority. And then suddenly you had the launch of healthcare.gov in October 2013. And I'd like to remind everyone it did end up working, but boy, did it not work when it first started. And that just put our thing as a priority finally. And so I always look at that and say, wow, there for the grace of God, I would have absolutely fallen on my face there. I didn't know how to get things done in government. I didn't have the political oomph to do it, and I just would have absolutely failed. But luck, lots of luck. Unfortunately, that was not lucky for many people, but it was lucky for our particular agenda. But we started out our very first year with basically all of the projects that we claim as successes, we did because the other thing we went in to do, we completely failed at. And it worked out okay, but we have a lot of, we really, really live that notion of fail fast and learn a lot from it.
That's right. So taking a little bit broader scope for a second, I think a lot of us feel personally really discouraged about where we are today as a civic society, and feeling like even just the very sort of fundamentals of our democracy and understanding how to talk to one another and argue constructively, and it just feels like there's a lot of divisiveness. What advice do you have for America, Jen, to could you just solve that? And
I don't think I can solve all of America's problems, but I do think that I have a unique perspective on our relationship to government. And I think what I would recommend you do is try to rethink that. Take another look at government, and I think you may genuinely find two things. If you get up close the way we have, you may be shocked by how badly things work in some cases, and that's what we're there to fix. But you also might realize how incredibly valuable it is, and all the things it does really well and is getting better at doing, and just the things that we take for granted. And I think if you think about both of those things, what I would say, and Jeff talked about this a little bit, like, think about it as looking in the mirror. I really fundamentally now do believe that we get the government that we deserve. And so if you don't like what you see, it is not anybody else's job to fix it. It is ours. That is the country that we built, is we the people are responsible for this. So you got to get involved. There's a million ways to do it, but I think one of the things that I'm proudest of most is that 8 years ago, at least if you were in the tech industry, it was hard to know what to do, right? But there's no excuse now. We know what you can do. You can get involved in a Code for America brigade. If you're technical, you can work with Code for America or with city, state, or federal government. There's just no excuse not to do it. And it doesn't mean it has to be your entire career, but it should be part of your career because it matters to all of us.
At Google, we started one of our volunteer programs was to volunteer with local government, and kind of surprised us that it was the single most popular opportunity. People, I think, are really hungering for that opportunity to plug in locally with governments and give back and figure out how to make it work.
And Google has been on this train of make government work since before I was, and you've done so much to do that. So I just want to give
Well, the smartest thing we ever did was back Jen Pahlka. So ladies and gentlemen, Jen Pahlka.
Thanks, Jacqueline.